Well, Dr. Lawrence Yan is the managing director of the quantitative research at the National Association of Realtors, where he manages the statistics and forecasting groups of the research division. Sounds rather heady. He writes regular columns on real estate market trends and creates NAR's forecast and participates in many economic forecasting panels, including Blue Chip and Harvard University Industrial Economist Council. And he happens to be on the line with us. Talk about real estate. So it sounds like the guy knows what he's talking about. Dr. Yun, how are you? Is it Yoon? Dr. Yoon, how are you?
Good afternoon, Phil. I'm doing fine here.
Good. Glad to hear from you. So, we've talked about the real estate market and what I saw in Las Vegas several years ago about the inflated real estate prices, which I remember saying at the time to a friend of mine who lived out there, that just is not real. And now we're seeing reality, or are we seeing reality in the real estate market in Las Vegas, this correction? Are prices really back to where they should be across the country?
As you mentioned, places like Las Vegas, Florida markets, Phoenix, those price appreciation during the boom, those were unreal. Now all that bubble prices have been completely erased, a very painful process. If one looks at the metrics, whether individually in local markets or nationwide, the prices have come down to fundamentally justifiable levels, whether home values to income ratio or by other metrics. The question is whether or not there will be an overcorrection or whether the housing market, there is enough strength so it can be on a healthy recovery path and then not encounter this excessive bubble and buzz going forward.
Well, people have always said, the three most important things about real estate are location. I would say if you're selling real estate these days, the three most important things are price, and price. I mean, you can sell any real estate if the price is right, can you not?
Many of the homeowners need to be realistic about how they need to price it correctly in order to attract buyers, without a doubt. Right now, it's buyer's market. There are too many sellers in relation to the buyers. So many of the sellers have this false expectation about what their homes are worth. So it is important to match up with the market condition, but nonetheless, it is still down to location. And the example that you gave, Flint, Michigan, in certain neighborhood where people, even at that price, people are unwilling to purchase. And same as in many neighborhoods across the country, there are areas where it is more desirable, where the school district is more influential. Therefore, people are still seeking out the more prime real estate based on location.
But normally, though, we have some sort of an equilibrium, don't we, Dr. Yoon, as far as buyers to sellers, and it seems like there are a lot more sellers than buyers. Is that because credit is tight?
Currently, we are in the immediate months after the home buyer tax credit stimulus.
Right.
We had that home buyer tax credit throughout last year. Remember, last year, the economy lost 5 million jobs, yet home sales actually increased despite those terrible economic conditions.
How did that happen?
Because of the tax credit, people are induced,
okay.
and we have to remember that 90% of the workforce still have jobs, and they respond to incentives. Now that the tax credit is gone, anticipate few months of very soft sales. That's natural. People rushed in. There's fewer people left in the pipeline. So you would be few months of very soft sales, which naturally means too many sellers in relation to the buyers. But as with any sector, we cannot rely on the stimulus measure to help any sector of the economy for a long period. The housing market has to get back on its own power, and right now, the conditions, low mortgage rates, 50-year low mortgage rates, and some job creation. I want to see faster job creation. We are not seeing that, but we do have some job creation. Maybe these two factors will steadily induce buyers back into the market.
Yeah, and we had a lot of things going on, and a lot of this is like the cash for clunkers thing with the automobile industry. When we move people from the future into the present to buy cars, and then when the cash for clunkers thing ran out, we had a dismal September of last year, and that's really what's basically been going on with the housing market. But it hasn't affected all housing, though, has it? Because that was a first-time home buyer's credit, so they weren't buying. Normally, these folks weren't buying $1 million houses, were they?
The credit for most part of last year was for first-time buyers, But first half of this year, it was also available for trade-up buyers. I mean, there are certain conditions in terms of income limitation. But one interesting thing given that you raised a very good question, what we saw in the latest housing data was that after the tax credit, there were very little first-time buyers. But the buyers who continued to stay in the markets were investors, all cash buyers, and buyers of expensive homes. So those people who are not impacted by the tax credit were the ones who continued to stay in the marketplace.
Now, when you say expensive homes, what you talking over what price range?
It would vary tremendously among local markets. You know, in some middle America, places like Kansas City, anything in the $400,000 would be considered expensive. In the California market, it would be in the $750,000. So it's a relative term, but in any given market, it was on the high-end market that actually held on better, even without the tax credit. So that is saying that there is some underlying strength in the housing market even without the tax credit subsidy.
Because normally the folks who have a little more money, like they make a little more money, still have their jobs, and they're gonna buy houses, and they're looking at this as a time to buy and get some great deals, aren't they?
Well, you know, the investor sector is also interesting. You know, they're coming into the market. For the investors, it is extremely difficult to obtain mortgage, yet they are coming into the market either with a heavy down payment, 50% down payment, or in many cases, all cash. So they are coming into the market because they see a great bargain, you know, deeply discounted prices. They want to pick it up before other people do so. And I would say that if a little later in the year with some job creation and people are induced by this 50-year low mortgage rates, people who bought, you know, say a few months ago, you know, they were ahead of the game. They were a few steps ahead of other people.
Yeah, I'm going through a building project right now where we're building a house and getting ready to sell a house at the same time. And what I found as far as getting the financing for the building project, it was relatively easy because I got really good credit. I mean, and that's really the important thing. If you've kept your credit rating up, you have a much better chance of getting credit, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one thing that we learned from the bubble bust period is not everyone can become homeowners, and you know, we need to return to the old system where the renters demonstrate responsibility, financial responsibility, and develop their credit history before they can become owners. Because not everyone at that certain stage in their life can become owners. So we have to go back to the old-fashioned way where people are buying a home with good credit history, and also people buying a home that is well within their budget. You know, don't overstretch your budget. Their first home may not be their dream home, but at least it's a start. And over time, as they move up the economic ladder, then they can consider trading up to a better home and so forth. So that was the old-fashioned, hard-earned American way, but we lost that in the housing bubble years where people were shooting for their dream home on their first try.
But we have some people in Congress, Barney Frank specifically, and Chris Dodd, and these people that think it's your God-given right to be able to own a home. And so we push people into homes with no credit, no down payment, and really people who were just set up to fail, didn't we?
It was partly the very aggressive federal policy trying to have more home ownership among the very low-income families. So there was a mandate on that. But aside from that, I mean, the Wall Street was drunk with credit. I mean, they were just saying that anyone with a heartbeat, here's a mortgage available for you. So it was not only the Washington policy, but also the credit market bubble that occurred in Wall Street, which led to the housing market bubble. But now people are sobering up, and we are recognizing that home ownership is not for everyone, but you know, having a successful renter population will actually set up for a good, healthy home ownership population down the line.
So what's some tips you can give if people are looking for a house? Are there some tips you can give them to take advantage of what's going on right now with the markets?
First, people should feel very comfortable before making a purchase. I mean, if they, for some reason, they have some anxiety about job losses, you know, they should hold back. But if they feel very comfortable, they have a stable job, and they are willing to stay well within the budget, right now the buyers have advantage over the sellers. There's a better price negotiating power. Furthermore, the 4.4% mortgage rate, today's market conditions, these are lowest since President Eisenhower days, lowest in 50 years. And without a doubt, I think the mortgage rate will be inching higher. So anyone who's grabbing mortgage rate at this level, they're getting bonus rates. So people who are feeling comfortable, financially capable, is a good time. I don't want to use the old cliche, buy, buy, buy. That's an irresponsible statement. But people, again, who are willing to stay within their budget, it's really a great opportunity to check the market.
And it used to be the old yardstick you used in whether you could afford a house was, I think it used to be 2.5 times your salary. But it really depends on the interest rates. And with the interest rates lower, people can afford more house than 2.5 times their salary. It really depends now on how much you can afford for the monthly payment, does it not?
Absolutely. I did a quick calculation for someone who's buying a home 5 years ago, buying a typical middle-priced home using an FHA mortgage at that current mortgage rate at that time, and the monthly payment was about $1,500. Today, to buy a middle-priced home, the monthly payment is about a little over $1,000. So in other words, there's a $500 per month difference in buying a home today versus 5 years ago. And this $500 savings is not a one-time thing. It occurs every single month.
Right. So you can afford more house, or you can get the same house for less money and not be so cash-strapped, right?
Absolutely. So again, but it would be for people who are absolutely comfortable in their financial situation.
Well, let's talk about people then who are selling. Like I'm going to be selling here. It's a matter of pricing it correctly. The mentality with a lot of folks is to put it on the market real high, thinking you can come down. But is that a bad strategy? People who unfortunately bought 5 years ago or 4 years ago, and now they see loss in equity, it's very difficult for the homeowners because, they put sweat equity into their home. They spend time trying to remodel, and to say that they have to sell their home for less value than what they purchased for, that's hard emotionally to take it in, soak it in. So it's very difficult for the homeowners to concede on their prices. But today's market conditions say they have to concede. Right now, there are too many sellers in relation to the buyers. So in order to attract buyers, they have to price it correctly. And consistently, I hear from realtors is that if they price it correctly, they can move that home within 30 days. But if they misprice it, then it will be sitting on the market for 3 months or longer. So good advice would be to listen to your realtor as to how they want to price the house instead of how you want to price the house, because they know the market and they know what can sell, right?
So certainly working with a professional's help, and many people have resorted to working with professional. The number of physical sales, in other words, for sale by owner, has trended down significantly in the past couple of years. Because during the boom, people thought they could do it themselves, but now they are recognizing that with a professional help, they can move their home much quicker.
Then what is typical as far as the commission that a realtor gets now? Because it used to be 6%, or has that come down now?
We don't collect data on that just because of the antitrust from the Justice Department. So we don't have any information on that, but it's always negotiable. So whether sellers or buyers, they need to talk to the realtors, negotiate what they think is correct price. But one thing that we consistently find is that after the transaction, when we take a survey of the home sellers or buyers, 80% said they were very satisfied with their realtor service and would recommend their friend, colleagues, and other family members to their particular realtors.
Interesting. Is there a website where people can go, Dr. Yoon, and read some of your writings and get more information about this?
Yes, I provide commentary on a frequent basis, and it can be in realtors.org, realtors.org.
Realtors.org.
So that's the website.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Lawrence Yoon, appreciate it very much. Some very useful information, whether you're buying or selling, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me on the show.